up there, hardcore Hammerlane homeboys? A little tug and a little semi-truck extraction here. So, I'm currently in, where the fuck is this town? I'm in Indiana, 69, between Fort Wayne and Indianapolis. Just stop, take my 30. Figure I'll film myself a little bit. It's been, I should say it's been a while. I mean, I'm gonna stop saying that because really it's always gonna be a while. I have the attention span of a fucking toddler, and therefore I constantly forget about these videos, or constantly forget about doing them, or I'll worry about setting it up and upload later, right? Type it in the. It's sad that something as simple as typing in the name of the vlog and what vlog number it is too much work, and I get mad at it. But that's the way she goes. So I'm just gonna check and see if my wipers will sit down lower. No, I guess they won't. Interesting, they are also flat. I do need new wipers. So as you can see, they're waving around a bit. Everything was good, and about 2 weeks ago they kind of just fell apart. So they work for now. I gotta stop. Got like which was it, a Flying J or a Loves or something. They usually sell the little Road Pro ones. And make sure I get the right ones for the truck and throw them in. So, but not a big deal. Like, excuse me, I gotta replace them with the snow flies. But for now, it's not the end of the world. So we're headed southwest. We gotta go to Tempe, Arizona, and I've got today and 2 more full days to get there, which is pretty good. That gives me quite a bit of time to get shit done. I drove yesterday as well. I would have liked to drive farther yesterday, but my dear old dad decided he wanted to pack it in early, and made a pretty strong case for why I should pack it in early too. So I said the heck with it. I'll call her a day. But then he pulled off the road even earlier. We were going to stop at a last Flying J on Highway 401 in Canada before you get to Windsor, Ontario. And there's an en route, which is our Canadian version of it. So it's kind of like a lot of the turnpikes have the service plazas where it's easy off, easy on. You got a parking lot. Some of them have fuel facilities, but it's a parking lot, and then you'll have access to like a couple of restaurants and a gas station. But you can't like. You have you can only get off the highway into the compound and back on the interstate. There's no, you can't. It's not like an exit like a truck stop. You can go out and then drive along off the interstate somewhere. So he winged it into one of those kind of last minutes. Yeah, I'm gonna. He likes his Tim Hortons coffee in the mornings. Yeah, I want to wing it here so I can get Timmy's. And I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'm gonna go to the Flying J where it's. The parking's usually dead, and especially on a Sunday, and I want to throw a splash of fuel in the morning just because this truck has a nasty habit of not balancing the fuel tanks properly. So by the time I get to a quarter tank of fuel, I need to start paying attention because if I start climbing any sort of grades, the case in point, the Blue Water Bridge, or not the Blue Water Bridge, sorry, the Ambassador Bridge, into Detroit from Windsor. At a quarter tank of fuel, my truck will stall going up that bridge. I've learned that the hard way. Ask me how. So it's much better to throw $200 worth of fuel in the truck than it is to pay the roughly $1,500 US tow bill, because the Ambassador Bridge, most of these bridges will not allow you to walk off the bridge and get fuel. A lot of the duty frees, the Ambassador Bridge in particular, has fuel stops, like diesel stations on either side. So if you're going to the US, you can get diesel in Canada, and if you're going into Canada, you can get diesel in the US. But we didn't have cards for those places, so we just pull right by. And I'm just going to see if I can turn the camera outwards a little bit, less of a view of the mountains, slightly more of the to the side of the truck, the driver's side. I'd like to get a GoPro and do a head cam, because a former friend of mine was doing that. This video might end up getting depressing, but it is what it is. I think most of my videos tend to be venting about shit. Which, like, for the people that do subscribe and, like, actually watch my videos, again, I don't know if anybody actually watches them in their entirety. I appreciate it. I hope that, some of you can kind of sympathize with some of the stuff and, maybe understand, like, you're not the only one that goes through some of the bullshit that that you're going through. I had to say goodbye to a very close friend on Friday. I shouldn't say I had to say goodbye. That makes it sound like he died. He didn't die. We stopped. How do I word this? There is no way to word it without sounding childish. We ended up dealing with a fair amount of interpersonal trauma, and I decided it was best to just to step away from my socialization with this person. I have the sneaking suspicion that they're quite mad about it, but I blocked them, so I have no way of knowing. It's also a lesson for why you really shouldn't, and this is my mistake, you really shouldn't tell people, like, talk to people about other people. Like, I'm a talker. I've always sought comfort in venting or discussing my issues with other people, right? Positive and negative issues. It doesn't really make a difference. However, one of the problems with that is that if my issues are with, say, a person, I was going to say inadvertently, but inadvertently isn't the right word, because I'm knowingly talking about them. I sometimes will talk about things that I probably shouldn't, and I can argue, well, they didn't specifically say they, didn't want me telling this to someone else or anything like that, but, most conversations with friends are typically done in confidence, and I don't typically, like, I don't usually break that, like, I don't break that confidence, but I know that I can sometimes, especially if I'm mad at somebody, right? I can vent about why I'm mad at them. So 2 or 3 years ago, I had a bit of a rough patch with a buddy of mine, and I vented to the friend in question, who I don't talk to anymore, about my frustrations with this other person. I don't want to use names. I don't know. We'll make up names. Just so we'll call them, Craig and George. So Craig, Craig has always been a listener when it comes to me. Like, he listens to me vent, right? He's listened to me talk about my highs, my lows. Craig's the friend that I'm no longer associating with. Oh shit. Well, or you can either wait or you can slowly try to gain on me, but I'm gonna go into your lane whether you like it or not, because there's a truck on the shoulder. And that's almost where I feel bad, because my friendship with Craig is oftentimes me rambling on and on about my life without really stopping. Like, he'll talk about himself, but even he says, like, I'm pretty content to just listen to you talk. Which is great. George, I talk to a lot less. So George and I had a bit of a falling out. We reconciled and, sorted our shit out. However, because I had vented to Craig about my frustrations with George, Craig, it's nothing personal. It's not deep personal shit or anything like that. It's just Craig, like, when I vented to my buddy, like, to Craig about George, I vented that, George was his dad got him everything, and he pretended that he didn't. And the issue is, like, George's dad says he did everything for George, and George says he doesn't, right? And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Like, I was venting about it, but, like, at the end of the day, I mean, it really doesn't matter, right? I guess because there's always, I've never been shy about telling people that my dad is the only reason I'm at any point in my trucking career that I'm at. There should be nobody out there who at 4 years, 4 years this month, happy anniversary to me, it's 4 years trucking, that at 4 years it owns a 389 that they bought brand new, right? And I bought this truck's 2.5 years old. So I had a year and a half with my CDL, and I bought my own brand new Peterbilt 389. I would not have been able to do that without my dad's help, right? So I usually, even if I'm frustrated with my dad, I always, I'll never not say that he's the reason I have what I have. So, I mean, George, same thing, right? You talk to George, he will say, yeah, his dad's helped him out. His dad's a big part of his where he's at. But, my dad and I get along much better than most fathers and sons do, especially when fathers and sons are headstrong. George and his dad are both stubborn as oxes, and that, they butt heads a lot. So, George and I, like, George kind of approached me and we talked a bit. It's like, yeah, you know what? I got mad for other shit, and it was just, kind of, we didn't know each other that well at that point, so it's like, George is a little edgy on the internet, but he's, he's the fucking nicest guy you'll fucking meet in person, you know what I mean? Like, the internet gives a lot of people the kind of free pass to be a little bit more blunt. So, Craig and George have never gotten along. They have talked, right? They've had some conversations. A year or so ago, there's a Facebook chat with most of my trucker buddies, and we all just shoot the shit or share memes or whatever. Craig asked if I could add him back to the chat. And again, a year ago, Craig was in the chat, and I think he was in the chat for 3 days before he got kicked out because he got into an internet argument with somebody over one of the guys in the chat over something stupid. He didn't like the way the guy, a lot of what it keeps boiling down to with both of them is he doesn't know me well enough to say that about me. It's like, well, both of you just fucking chirping each other. So either you both need to accept that you clearly know each other well enough to chirp each other, or neither of you know each other well enough to chirp each other, and you both need to shut up, right? So George runs is technically in charge of the Facebook chat, so George kicked Craig out, and that was it. So Craig asked me on Wednesday to add him to the chat. So Thursday, it was Thursday. So Thursday, I told him, like, I give it a week before you're booted out of that chat. Like, you and George don't get along, right? I know what's going to happen. You two are going to have it out, and it's going to be a shit show. And one of you is probably going to try to drag me into it, right? And I kind of figured it would be Craig, because George is very, George, for being the one that gets into more fights out of the two, George is also, like, a lot less, he's more tightly wound, but he's more patient with people, if that makes any kind of sense. I mean, it's like me, like, I can get very high-strung and wound up, and I'm very, very patient with people. Craig is less high-strung, but also, he takes greater offense to, things people say or do. We have another guy in the chat who, he'll post, one of our guys might post a picture of a truck and he'll say that's shit. And George will just fucking kick him out of the chat and re-add him like 10 minutes later. And it's funny, it's a joke, we all fucking laugh, right? Craig does not like being kicked out of the chat as a joke. So I guess they got into a small argument. It wasn't a big thing. They teased each other over something. And George kicked Craig out of the chat. So Craig was immediately brought back in the chat and immediately began kind of that, oh no, I'm not mad, but obviously somebody's all butthurt and has to exercise their authority and kick me out of the chat. Like it was no longer joking about anything. It was now, you can tell, like, he was gonna pick at George for what George did and try to pretend like he was just chirping George, but obviously George struck a nerve. So I think they bickered back and forth like 2 messages each, and George said, "Yeah, fucking ban him." Kicked him out of the chat again, said he's not coming back. I don't like him. So then Craig messaged George personally, and I guess they had a big shit show. So then I get a message from Craig, and Craig says, I thought I could trust you, but now I realize that you just blab everything to everybody about me. And I said, like, what the fuck do you mean? He said, well, George knew personal things about me that I've only told you. And I'm like, okay, I don't think I've ever told George anything about you. George has you on Facebook, so, like, what did he say, right? And he said, well, he talked about me being a failure and said stuff about my dad. And I'm like, well, I've never told anybody that you're a failure, that I think you're a failure, because I've never thought that Greg is a failure. I keep saying it, Greg. I might as well say Greg. Greg is nowhere close to his fucking name anyways, but, you know, so Greg and George. You know, I've never once said there or sat and thought that Greg is a failure of any kind, right? He puts his head in the grindstone, or his nose in the grindstone, whatever the fucking term is, and he busts his ass, and he's been taken advantage of a lot by people he's worked for. But I don't know anybody that works harder than that fucking guy. So, and then the same thing with his dad. I said, well, like he said, like, you know, well, you told him that my dad's a piece of shit. And I said, well, I've never told him anything about your dad, but your dad is a piece of shit, right? I don't like his father, right? It's we've already had that conversation. It's, you know, it is what it is. But I've never talked to George about Greg's personal life, right? So I apologize. I'm sorry. Like, you know, I mean, I guess I said something, because I don't remember half the conversations I have, and I'm not very good at necessarily curbing myself when I start talking. So there is a good chance maybe I did say something I don't remember, right? And he's like, I'm not even mad. I just, you know, I thought I could trust you. So I get, you know, I message George and say, like, this is what's going on. Like, I'm sorry, you know, I knew that was going to happen. We started just kind of talking about how silly it was. And I messaged George and asked, you know, I told him, like, I would have appreciated it if you didn't, you know, bring up things that I've told you. And he's like, wait, what fucking things have you told me? So, I mean, I don't actually know. Like, I guess I said something. So he sent me the entire conversation. And basically what happened is Greg messaged George and started cursing him out and started, you know, name calling, like, you know, calling him, you know, harsh words and shit. George tried to de-escalate, and then Greg said something. I can't remember exactly what he typed, but he said something that actually kind of pissed George off. So George said, like, I mean, whatever, dude, like, you're a fucking failure anyways, so, like, why do I fucking care? Something like that, right? And again, I've never once said that Greg is a failure, but I can see somebody on the outside when they look at, you know, he's been driving a truck for 2 years, and he's been to a lot of different companies, right? However, that doesn't mean anything. I've been to a fair number of different companies in my trucking career. Like, trucking, you know, the average turnover rate when I started trucking was less than 4 years, and I think it's decreased even more. So I'm not really surprised that, you know, I've never held it against Greg or anything that he goes to different jobs. But obviously that, I've had people say that with me. I've had people try that. I've watched people try that on other people. They immediately point out a certain aspect of your trucking career and dig into it as though it's, you know, it is the sole reason why you are the Antichrist and you're gonna die, right? I had a buddy that got torn into by another couple of guys on the internet because he'd gone through Wyoming and the wind had caught his truck and fucking blew it over. He bought himself his first owner-operator truck. It was his first run, and it got fucking blown over by, you know, 110 mile an hour winds in Wyoming. He had suggested to, again, they were both friends on Facebook, but he posted a picture of his truck, and what he's been doing is every time he gets a new IFTA sticker, he was putting it next to the old one instead of covering the old one up with the new one. So it gives the double issue of, if a DOT officer decides that he's really fucking bored, technically he can go after the guy for displaying multiple IFTA stickers, right? Again, most officers don't, because they just, as long as you have one for the current year, they're not worried. But technically, he's not supposed to have two different IFTA stickers displayed. And also, it just that, you know, it makes your truck, it just makes you look like a fucking kind of a, you know, like you really don't give a shit about your truck because you're covered in fucking rainbow colored stickers. And the guy who had posted the photo got immediately upset and went after the guy, and, you know, him and another friend curses one guy out for, he can't even drive truck, and he fucking rolled his only truck, and, just beat the kid into the ground over, wind blowing his truck over, like, shit like that. So, I've seen it happen a few times. So, when George mentioned that he thought Greg was a failure, or said that, Greg's a fucking failure, Greg immediately then went and used everything that I had said to Greg about George when, again, two or 3 years ago, when George and I kind of fucking had a rough patch, and said, all that stuff to him, right? So I'm like, wait a fucking minute, okay? George says something incredibly vague, and admits to me, like, I have no idea what the fuck, you've never said anything to me. But because it's like the guilty, the cheater always accuses the other of cheating. Because Greg went ahead immediately and began retaliating by actually saying personal shit, Greg then either got very offended because he immediately just projected or assumed that the very vague thing that George said, which he said was, you can glean that opinion by looking at his Facebook. I clearly told him all kinds of stuff about his life, which again I haven't. I checked. I never have. Right. And then went after me for saying those things. So it was like, okay, now you've become a hypocrite. Like, you have had the gall to tell, to tell George a bunch of, try to go after him with shit that I've said to you in confidence about George, when I was, again, George and I were not getting along very well, right? And that's where I really should learn just to not fucking vent to anybody and keep my feelings and emotions to myself. But that's also, I think, is very unhealthy. So it's kind of, six in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I told him, like, I'm not even mad that you retaliated by saying personal things. I'm mad that you went and said personal things, throwing me under the bus to George, but then had the nerve to come and yell at me for presumably me throwing you under the bus or me throwing him under the bus to George. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think of the way to word it. It makes sense in my head. Every time I try to word it, it's hard to properly explain. But, it's just hypocritical. It's like I don't have time for it. I don't want to deal with it. I've had a pretty rough summer in terms of like my emotional state, and I'm not like, it's not like my rough summer has ended, I guess. Right? Things aren't that great, so I didn't really want to deal with interpersonal drama and having to whatever you want to call it, having to fucking explain myself to friends or be accused of shit. And I said, I'm done with it. And again, it shows something, because George, even after that, George never went after me and said, like, why the fuck did you tell him those things about me? Right? Or why the fuck did you vent about this shit? George knows that him and I fucking had a fucking argument like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. For like a week, we fucking hated each other. I shouldn't even say hated each other. It was just almost the same thing. I was just told myself I was done fucking dealing with it. Right? So he accepted the fact that I talked to other people because I was mad and left it. He never once gave me shit for it, even though, again, at this point, he's just learned that I vented about him to other people. Right? So again, there's that double, I don't know what you call it, the duality of it. George actually had personal shit said about him, and he shrugged it off, and Greg did not, but decided he was going to get mad at me about it anyways. And I think a lot of it was Greg was mad that I said I was staying out of the whole fucking argument, because they're both my friends and I'm not taking sides, and I told him from the start this wasn't a good idea. Because the last thing he said to me before he started giving me shit was, I guess if you want to be friends with a fucking idiot like him, you do you, man. Right? Which I actually expected him to give me an ultimatum after that. So, you know what, like, if you still really want to be fucking friends with this piece of shit, then you can, you can have nothing to do with me. The result would have been the same as what happened. I would have said, okay, well, you're the one that's putting me to, like, forcing an ultimatum, so you're the one that's going to go, right? I've always believed that. Like, if I've got some sort of interpersonal conflict with people and somebody forces an ultimatum, right? Especially if it's like it's him or me, or it's her or me, or whatever. The answer is going to be whoever did not force me an ultimatum is going to be the one that I choose, because a good friend doesn't, especially when it comes to socializing, a good friend doesn't force an ultimatum on another one, right? Greg can leave the chat, never fucking talk to him again. That's how it's been for the last fucking year and a half, 2 years, right? So, but he didn't. Like I said, he just kind of showed himself to be a bit of a hypocrite. So it sucks, because Greg and I talk on the phone almost every day. So it was really nice to have somebody to talk to, right? I can just sit there and ramble about, what I'm excited about, what I'm nervous about. I can nerd out about things. Where I don't have that now, right? Like, I don't have any friends that just sit there and listen to me for fucking hours. YouTube is pretty much the only way to do that now. So I guess on the plus side, I might actually start doing more YouTube videos. But that's I guess something good coming out of something bad. I would have liked it if something bad had not happened, right? But yeah, so it kind of sucks, but again, it is what it is. Like, I don't go after people and get shitty. I just block them. Like I said, I told him why I blocked him, and that was the end of it. I think I've blocked pretty much any access he has to talk to me. And he hasn't. I shouldn't say that. There's a couple other forms of communication that are still open, but he hasn't tried them. So I'm assuming either he's pissed or he's trying to give me my space. But again, I'm leaning towards the former. He gets pretty salty when he thinks people have slighted him in some way. So it is what it is. But I hopefully, I will have some new distractions for this coming year or the end of this year. It looks like, and it's still up in the air because it's still subject to approvals and shit, but it looks like I may be buying a new truck. I went through, again, a very difficult patch for a while this summer. When I was hauling tanker, and I've mentioned this in other videos, when I was hauling tanker, the pay was phenomenal, or at least very, very good. And it dried out almost overnight. The same month that I bought an apartment and bought a new pickup, right? So I had bought myself a better winter vehicle because I was driving a fucking Mustang. Well, the Mustang costs a lot less money as a brand new car. It also, I spent most of the winter fucking sideways in the thing, so I figured it was time I got a vehicle with high ground clearance and four-wheel drive and some cargo carrying capacity, right? So I got a four-door F-150, the 4.5 foot box and everything on it. It's perfect for me. I'm still probably going to get a Bronco. That's because Broncos are fucking cool. But I all the money I put aside to pay for this truck, like in terms of like maintenance bills and stuff, got eaten up because I tried to stay at the tanker place and make things work. So my 10 grand I had in the bank dried up, paying for rent and my new truck payment, like my car payment and my truck payment. So I had left and gone and worked at a different company. Like I said, that, I hate to say it, that never really made me any money. I kind of just sat where I was financially, and things were getting farther and farther behind. So coming into where I'm working now, I do not have any money in the bank at all. Like, again, for some people, they think that that's like some people's definition of being broke is different across the board, right? I think people who are responsible with money and properly budget, to them, like if I say I'm broke, that means I got $4,000 or $5,000 left in the bank, right? I got a truck payment and my bills for a month or two, and that's it, right? But me, I grew up in like a poor family with relatively, my mother never worked, so my father, worked various trucking jobs. For me, when I say I'm broke, that means my bank account is either $0 or in the negative, or is like again I have $100, $200, and that's it. Right? Not enough. They don't have enough money in my bank account to pay a bill, let alone all my bills. This lady's fucking. She was trying real hard to fucking pass me. I guess because she didn't want to do 55 and a 55, and now that we're back out into the open road, right? Well, I think technically it's being doing 65. Well, all the shit's gonna blow out of her pickup, and that's fucking great. All over this fucking Challenger. That's nice. Where was it? Yeah, so things here, I make better money than I did when I was hauling tanker. But things are farther behind, right? So I've got some bills to catch up. I've got some work to do. But one of the issues now that's arising is the fact that this truck will start needing it's not regular maintenance, right? Because regular maintenance is an oil change, grease jobs, all that stuff. But parts are going to start wearing out on this truck, right? I'll need new drive tires by spring at the latest. I'll need I might need a new clutch by the end of next year. And those are all things like a whole full set of drive tires is probably 8 to 10 grand. I don't have 8 or 10 grand sitting in the bank. I can't afford to put tires on this truck, right? So now we're getting to the point like if something breaks, right, I cannot afford to fix it, and I no longer have a warranty on this truck. So there's a couple of options you can do, right? Again, the ideal way when I bought this truck was to save all your money so that when the truck's out of warranty, you have the cash to pay for repairs. That's good and bad, right? It's obviously much more financially responsible, but it also means that in your first few years of the truck, you put your head down, work real hard, don't do anything fun, so that when the next 2.5 years of the truck, you don't do anything, you put your head down, you work your ass off to make money, while the money you made from the first 2.5 years pays for any maintenance, right? Like it's kind of I don't know, again, I guess to me, time feels like a really long thing, so the idea of saying like, I'm not gonna go on vacation, I'm not gonna have a social life, I'm not gonna do anything but work my ass off for 5 years, it feels like what I'm sure people think when they're going to prison for fucking 10, 20 years. Like, there's, I might as well, my life might as well be over, because what am I going to do when I fucking 5 years from now, when I'm 36 years old, and, I'm almost 40, and I got fucking nothing but a fucking paid for truck, and I guess a fucking rented apartment to show for myself, right? And that's where social pressure is a problem, right? You want to be like everybody else and have all the things, but it's also I don't want to abandon my social life, everything that I kind of have, but it might just be what has to happen. It's what my dad has done. That's how he's lived his life. He doesn't have a social life, right? He's got friends, but most of his friends he sees once, maybe twice a year. He'll talk to on the phone or via text maybe 4 or 5 times a year, and that's it. I'm more social than that, so that ends up being a problem. But I might not have much of a choice. Nice fucking turn signal, or lack thereof. So the easiest solution, because again, I did not put money away. I didn't get much of a chance to put money away for the last 2 years. When we bought this truck, it wasn't until we got to the tanker place that I actually started making any money. And then again, after that, I lost all the money I made. Before that, when I first bought this truck, every place we went to was pretty not fucking good. So we, both my dad and I are kind of not doing the greatest financially. So my truck is at the point now where it will get the highest purchase value when compared to what's left owing on it. Right? I owe about $100,000 on this truck. It's worth probably $140. Well, I shouldn't say it's worth $140. It's worth about $160, but they'll buy it for $135, $140, give or take. So I trade the truck in, take that, let's say $30,000, and say they give me $130 for it, and then I buy a new truck, right? So buying a new truck provides me with a few options. For starters, it means that regardless of whether I get the extended warranty or not, I have at least 2.5 years again of full coverage warranty. Now, I plan on buying the extended warranty because I want 5 years of full coverage warranty, but them's the breaks, right? I get a minimum of 2.5 years of full coverage warranty. It also allows me to rectify a lot of the problems that this truck had or has, right? Things like the fuel tanks not lining up, the dashboard not being what I chose. I initially didn't like the where the reverse lights were. Now I do like them. Like, I don't really want them on the side of the bunk, even though they're more useful. They don't look as nice, so it's, I don't often use backup lights to back up anyways, because I find it gets harder to see. Everything in light is easy to see, but it makes anything that's in darkness like much darker and harder to spot, which with most backup lights is anything behind the fucking trailer. So with the backup lights off, I just kind of let my eyes adjust to the dark and I can see everything kind of at an even level of brightness. But again, some people are different. I think my eyes adjust fairly quickly to darkness. Like, if I get plunged into a dark room, I'm usually the first person that can start seeing enough to move around. So, I think as a result, when I'm going from light to dark constantly, it's harder for my eyes to kind of just stay. If my backup lights are too bright to look at, and the dark looks good, right? It'll be a while before the lights are normal and the dark is too dark. Where with me, is if I'm looking using the lights, the lights are normal and it's too dark. And if I turn the lights off fairly quickly, the light or like the darkness I can see through, and the lights become too bright. So I'm probably going to leave them the way they are. But then there was the debate about what truck to buy. I have been saying for a year and a half now that I want to buy a W900 as my next truck. I'm still like sort of debating. I haven't 100% settled on what I'm buying yet. My dad has made a pretty solid case for Pete, another Peterbilt. But I'm not like super convinced yet, right? It's a bit of a tough one because in terms of like outward appearance, I think both trucks are equally beautiful. There's obviously differences. Peterbilts look more like a vintage like 30s or 40s hot rod coupe. Kenworths do look like more of a work truck, but Kenworths have a much better interior. I'm more familiar with the dash layout in a Pete, but I would argue that the Kenworth layout is a lot better. Kenworths have the infinitely better bunk, but they have a much rougher ride because they won't provide an air ride front axle suspension. So again, there's a bit of a trade-off here, right? The trucks come out to right around the same price. The Pete is a bit cheaper. Technically, the Pete is probably, from the factory, it's about $5,000 cheaper. However, the Pete is a 389 with a 525 Cummins on an 18-speed, 336 rear ends, 272-inch wheelbase. I might do 275, but Canada wants you to put these stupid fucking outriggers on the frame with lights in between. It's to sell. You don't need to have them when you're driving down the road, but like the dealership will take them off, but they might not paint the frame underneath, so then you got fucking patches. And then, like the same bunk I have now, but have, again, the things that I did want, I still do want fixed, like the fuel tanks and the dashboard and stuff, done up the way I want it. The big difference and where they end up being the same price is the Pete I'm ordering with the grass burner. And I think there's a lot of people who, if I was streaming this, would immediately give me shit. And people watching this might give me shit. A lot of people will say, I've been asked this before when I've driven a Pete with a grass burner. Why would you buy that truck and have stacks on the side if they're fake? Right? Well, why wouldn't you have real exhaust? And there's a couple of things. Usually people who ask me those questions also ask me why I don't get the truck deleted. And it's like, because then I can't go to California. Right? And if I should say, if I get caught in California, I can't go anywhere ever again. Right? And as much as, I want to be a fucking big tough Billy Big Rigger outlaw with a fucking, a 60 series Detroit or a fucking, you know, C15 Cat, I can't do that and then do my job, right? It's just not going to work. So I stick with an emissions compliant motor, and whatever the fuck else I was getting out of this fucking shit, right? The grass burner. So I liked, when I worked for Scott Lynn, I had a grass burner, but then I was able to have like great big 7-inch straight pipes on the truck. And yes, they don't do anything. Like my dad's, it's like the elbow, it ends at a mount. Like it's a very handsome mount, but they just end, right? But it lets you put whatever stacks you want on the truck to get whatever look you want, and it is the only way with the current generation of 389s to put the passenger side, the old style step blocks that matches the driver's side, right? Because on modern 389s, when the stacks are run through the truck, the GPF is in the passenger side step. So it no longer is a toolbox, and it is also a larger and different step compared to the driver's side. So the truck becomes asymmetrical, right? So by getting under the grass burner, you get the GPF routed through a different canister in behind the step. You can then put the normal step on, or the original step, so that the steps match on both sides. And again, there'll still always be people, well, I would rather have the stacks do like real stacks. And like for me, I don't care, right? Again, I'm not driving a big fucking straight pipe C15. I'm not rolling coal. I'm driving an emissions compliant fucking truck with a Cummins motor, right? On the new Pete's, the fucking exhaust is routed out of one stack anyways on all the new trucks. My truck was the last year, 19, where they had the exhaust run out of both stacks, right? Everything comes out of one stack now. So who fucking cares if it's a stack that's running along the ground or the one of the two stacks that's sticking out the fucking side of the truck, right? Because then only one, like you can put one of those stacks a big fake straight pipe, but the other one you still have to make sure it fucking has a heat shield and shit, right? Because that was the thing, right? There's now laws you have to have heat shields on pipes. So that was what I was going with. Kenworth, because Kenworth has an entirely different step system. The steps can be symmetrical on a Kenworth, or very close. So the same shape, I think they're slightly different dimensions. So the Kenworth is a slightly shorter frame, like 2 inches. Same, almost all the other features are the same, other than it has a couch in the upper bunk. Like the Kenworth is probably slightly better value for your money, because I put the 565 X15 in it, 18-speed, 336 rear ends, right? So again, it's I gotta decide. Like I've already basically got the final spec for Kenworth, and I already know how much it costs, right? The Kenworth, after what, like, and this is something I've kind of forgot about, because once my dad gets excited about something, like he gets very big into fucking like pushing for it. After all the accessories are done, the Kenworth will probably be cheaper, right? The Kenworth is $197 at the factory door, and the Pete is $192. But the Kenworth stainless is about $800. Well, it's all before installation, but the Peterbilt is like $2,300 installed. The Kenworth here, it's with $3,500 on a Pete to get the big fake stacks put on. Because otherwise, with the option, you get no stacks, or for a lesser charge, you can put factory stacks on with the grass burner exhaust. Which again, I mean, you can do it if you want to save the money, you want to keep a clean look, and just if you're just mainly after the steps. But if I'm gonna get a grass burner for the steps, I might as well get the big fake fucking pipes. But then also, like I said, all the stainless, there's a couple of other options that I want on a Pete. You just can't get on a Kenworth, so it's easier to deal with. So like I said, really at the end of it, they'll be very similar in price. So I got to decide: do I want the bigger motor? And I mean, again, I can ask the Pete, like I could get the Pete priced out with a bigger motor. I don't know how much of a different price difference it is to get 40 more horsepower. But I could get, like the Kenworth has the bigger motor and the better bunk. Ugh. But the Pete arguably will look cooler and have more customization on it from the factory, as well as what I can do afterwards. So it's a bit of I got to sit and think about it. Like first I got to get all my tax shit done. make sure that I can get, like, you know, get this truck appraised and see what I can get for it. Because I need at least probably 30 grand down to fucking buy a new truck. So if they give me fucking $10,000 in profit for this thing, then it's not worth it, right? If I owe 100 on it and they give me 110, well, then I'm not selling the truck. So it's the way it is. But my truck is currently at the same age as my dad's Kenworth when he traded it. And one of the issues you run into with trucks, with cars, like especially if you're buying a vehicle from the same dealership, if you buy a Ford, you trade it at a Ford, you can trade the vehicle in, right? Like I took my Mustang in and traded it in, so they factored that in as a partial down payment, but also it paid for itself and cleared the, you know, a lot of what I owed on the Mustang still. With semi trucks, they don't do that. Peterbilt won't take another, even a Pete as a trade. I have to go and sell the truck privately, and then use the money to buy. Like people buy used trucks, but they'll buy it from you, and then you make the plan to buy a new truck. Like they don't do it all as part of a trade deal. You know what I mean? So, and you know, it's the same reason. Like I could, like, you know, my dad got worried when he had his Kenworth. When he bought his last Kenworth, he had a Kenworth before that, and he thought like he would get a better deal if he stayed within like the Kenworth family. But then when he found out like Kenworth doesn't want his truck, his first Kenworth, they don't care. Then he's like, well, fuck, like he'd already ordered the new one, but he's like, fuck, I could have ordered whatever I wanted because I had to sell the truck privately anyways. And same as last truck he sold to Upper Canada Truck Sales, and it sold pretty quick, right? But you know, again, it's one of those things where I've got to really decide what I want to prioritize, right? Like, the trucking industry is so up and down with a lot of things. It can be difficult to try to, like, you always typically end up wanting to spec a truck, at least in Canada, that's pretty good for generally anything. Like there's a channel I watch on YouTube called Smart Trucking, and it's a husband-wife team, and the wife does all the banking and like the bookkeeping and stuff, and the husband does the truck driving. And you know, the husband has kind of said, you know, you want to spec a truck that's kind of middle of the road, good for, you know, unless you know you're specializing for something. And I wouldn't buy a truck then. You know, you want a truck design that can haul 80,000 pounds, like you can gross 80,000 pounds with that truck and happily go down the road. He puts more attention into resale value, which there is absolutely something to be said about resale value. But you can also, like, you end up a lot of times sacrificing things that you want for the sake of keeping a truck generally sellable. Like this particular guy, he specifically spec'd a flat top because he found they got a better resale value. I like being able to stand up. I think flat tops are absolutely, of the three main most well-known Peterbilt 389 bunks, or 379 bunks, flat tops look the sharpest. They absolutely do. However, I like being able to stand up in the morning when I put my pants on, right? Having a truck that you can never stand up in, I mean, lots of guys do it and they're happy as a clam, but that was the one caveat I was going to make when it came to deciding between like appearance or comfort. Was I will get the 63-inch high-rise because it still kind of looks like a hot rod truck because it's not the big bunk, but I can stand up in it. You can spec it with a cat loader, and his wheelbase is longer than what I looked at when he ordered his last truck back before Canada put in these laws where you got to get these stupid fucking outrigger lights on the frame. Like, it's literally a pole that comes off the frame, kind of halfway between the back of the bunk and the drives, and there's just an amber light on the end of it. Like I said, they're bolted on, but I don't know if they paint the frame underneath or if they painted anything other than black. So if I get a painted frame and I get those outriggers, I might have two black fucking squares where those friggin' outriggers sat, right? If you go 272 is the highest, because it gives you a I can't remember what it was, it's a 370 or 360 overall length, or 350, whatever it is. My dad is right at the limit at 272 wheelbase, so if I add 3 inches, I'm 3 inches over the limit, and then I have to have that outrigger. Now again, Kenworth is different. Kenworth has more overhang off the back of the frame, which means that again, even though if the wheelbase is shorter, the overall length of the truck is longer. So my dad's Kenworth, his W9, his last W9 had a 262 wheelbase and had those outriggers, but he also had a non-painted, like a black frame, so it wasn't a big deal. I want a painted frame, which means I may have, you know, 2 black spots, or I have 2 spots that are touched up and won't look quite as good. But you know, it's all up in the air as far as how that goes. So yeah, it's kind of a decision between having like the sweet custom Peterbilt that I wanted when I bought this truck, or having still an attractive truck, but having a truck that is a little bit more practical, or not even practical, just a little bit like there's the feature sets are in different areas, right? Having a truck with a little more horsepower and a better sleeper setup, right? And you know, there's arguments both ways, right? I would love to have a couch, but I've also been just fine for 2.5 years with this bunk, right? I love W9s, and like I said, as I talk more in this video, and this is an issue I have where my mind constantly shifts, my interest constantly shifts. I love the bunks in W9s. I fucking love them. Right? My dad's been trying his ass off to talk me out of it again. But we had a big discussion about it. Like I like the idea of having a couch and then having an upper bunk if I want to sleep in it. My dad's like, well, how long is it going to be before you're sick of jumping in that upper bunk? It's like, then I fold the couch back down into a bed and sleep on it like you're supposed to. But because if I get a couch, you can't get the power inverter. So my dad said, well, don't get the couch, get a bed. I said, well, that kind of defies the point of like the biggest draw to a W9, right? For me, it's the couch. So that you have a couch with a table that folds out over top of it, so you actually have a comfortable workstation or a comfortable gaming station, and you're not, like I said, sitting hunched over on the end of the bed to play your video games or to do paperwork. Right, the Pete's are kind of the interior's dated, right? The upper shelf I have a microwave in, but it's technically designed for one of those old like cathode tube TVs, right? They're not designed for a flat screen or anything. And I mean the Kenworths don't have it either, but they've got a bigger space that you can set a flat screen on. But again, Peterbilt's ride smoother, right? You've got the air ride on the front. You can get I'm getting the low air leaf on the back, so the truck as a whole ride lower. So again, like I guess basically what it's looking at is the Pete, the money's going into appearance, and the Kenworth, the money's going into performance, right? If that makes any sense, right? Obviously, like I said, the air ride, there are performance, like different performance characteristics for both. The Pete, I can get the low air ride on the front. Kenworth, I can't. But Kenworth, I can get a couch. Pete, I can't. So there's different. There's different ways to go. Like I don't need a 565 horsepower motor. I've got 25,000 pounds in the box right now, and that's a little on the heavier side of what I haul here. I certainly don't need to make the truck underpowered or anything like that, because there's always a chance that I might go work somewhere else. But the 565 is more like just to brag that I have the second biggest Cummins motor, right? Than to just because I actually need that horsepower. So like I said, the wheelbase would be the same, and a lot of the other feature sets are the same, right? The same fucking Alcoa rims on it, same friggin' Webasto heater or S-bar heater. Like a lot of the stuff doesn't change. It's just, do I want a couch and a big motor, or do I want, again, the Pete the way I wanted it from the start? And that's what I got to debate. So I got to think about it. And I realized I should have led with this in the video. I might split this up, or try to split it up and make it into 2 videos, because I'm sure half the people will not sit through the negative, me kind of venting about shit, to get to me talking about fun stuff like buying a new truck. But it is what it is. I'll figure out, maybe split the video somewhere, because I'm at almost an hour now anyways. These videos are cripplingly long because I don't shut up. And again, the other issue is color. The My first idea for the Kenworth and the Pete was the same color this truck is, which is Viper Blue. Blue is a pretty sure bet, right? The biggest thing is I already now know what Viper Blue looks like in person, right? My eyeballs have been staring at this Viper Blue hood for 2.5 years. Viper Blue also goes exceptionally well with the company I work with now with their pinstripes. All the trucks are kind of a darker navy blue, but for some reason the stripes on the trailers are like more of a brighter blue, like closer to like this signs, like these signs here on the right. So Viper Blue gets really close to that. It's just got metallic, like it's got metallic flake in it. So again, there's a lot to be said about getting a Viper Blue either truck. Kenworth will do they'll also do a metallic frame. They'll paint the frame Viper Blue, which is a metallic color. But you get it's no upcharge over a painted frame in general. But it is, you get no warranty. With a Peterbilt, you can also get a metallic painted frame, but it is a $4,000 upcharge. So I think it ends up being like $1,000 or $2,000 over a normal painted frame, and no warranty, right? A regular painted frame on both, you get 6 months warranty. If you have a black frame, I think you get a year, and that's warranty on the paint. That's not the frame itself. You know, if my frame cracks in half 8 months in, the frame still gets fixed or replaced. It's the paint on the frame that they don't cover. So Viper Blue is one that I already know how it'll look, right? Whether it's on a Peter or Kenworth, I already know how it'll look. But then there's the argument, especially if I buy a Pete, well then I really am literally just buying the same truck over again, but just rectifying the features that I didn't like on this one. So again, then you're dealing with a lot of people like, did you get a new truck? Like, wasn't your old one blue? So is this a different blue? You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna get constantly asked, or I'm gonna get constantly asked, like, if I bought a different truck. So if I went with a legitimately different color, then it's, yeah, you got a new truck, eh? Yeah, sure did. But I keep settling on purple. Purple is a color that is a pain in the fucking ass for me, because I like a lot of different shades of blue. I only like very specific shades of purple. And the color that I've come out that is the closest to what I like is Plum Crazy Metallic. And it is a beautiful color. And again, it's like the Viper Blue. It's not a legendary color, so it's not a copious amount of metallic flake. But as soon as the sunlight catches it, you can see the sparkle. The hard part's the frame. Viper Blue, I would have just done a blue frame. Fucking bing, bang, boom. Or a red frame, because you got the red ovals. Blue and red look good together. Purple purple is good as a color. Like, purple will go with almost anything if purple is the smaller accent color. But purple doesn't work as well. Purple's the main color. Purple goes well with like shades of white, like cream, white, you know, kind of like you can put a little bit of yellow or gold in it, and black or gold. I don't really like purple and gold. I feel like that's a little overused, right? Or purple, I guess yellow is the same thing, you know. And I don't really want to splurge if I'm already paying for a painted frame. I don't really want to splurge the extra money to get a two-tone metallic paint job, especially when I'm also paying to get the tanks painted. So the truck will likely be one solid color. I've actually quite liked it on this one. A lot of people do pinstripes or different stripe designs, and it's really cool. But I'm like, you know what? I kind of like not having stripes, or doing like my dad does and having some vinyl, like some small pinstripes, rather than an actual, you know, a big stripe or like the Seminole paint scheme or something like that. So that's my thought, is to do it that way, is the Plum Crazy Metallic. But then you can't do Plum Crazy Metallic on the frame without an upcharge. So you got to either try to find a purple that is similar but it's not a metallic paint, or paint the frame a different color. And that's the hard part I'm having now, right? The closest non-metallic paint to the one I want is Casino Purple. However, I've seen videos of Casino Purple trucks, and it does not look like the same color as mine. But again, I don't know, right? Cameras pick things up differently, the human eye picks things up differently. I watched a video where I really didn't like the way the Plum Crazy Metallic looked, but it was because they compared it with a red frame, where the paint chip is pretty much, you know, I've been shown in photos, because the sales guy Took a bunch of photos of just putting the paint chip of Plum Crazy next to different colors to kind of compare the frame. Violet is nice, but it's more of like a lilac or like a pink. There's a lot more pink in it, which could still be nice as a two-tone thing, but I mean, I'm slightly afraid then there's going to be a lot of, like, that's a girl's truck, because you are then like pink and purple, or not, and it's not pink, it's like a really light shade of violet or purple. Right, and again, I personally love those color combos, but, and really it's my truck, I can get whatever the fuck I want. It doesn't cost any more to get the truck, the frame painted a different color, as long as it's a normal, like a non-metallic color. I'm already paying the upcharge for a different color, that's it. So those are, you know, that's what I'm looking at, right? Viper Blue obviously will go better with the trailers, and I know what it looks like. But I've also had a truck that's been that color for 2.5 years, right? It'd be nice to have something different. And while like a deep metallic red looks really nice too, you know, I'm not that much of a red guy. Blues and shades of blue are my favorites, and then purple. So I gotta think about it. I gotta struggle away for a little bit. I gotta, you know, a couple of weeks. If I order the truck basically within the next couple of days or a week, the truck will be ready the end of November. If I wait until November, I won't get the truck until the beginning of next year, which is not the end of the world either way. I've gone back and forth as to whether or not I want to buy a new truck and have it show up in the dead of winter, or if I want to wait till next year. But then this truck may need some work before then, and or new tires, and might be valued slightly less. So it's all a fucking struggle. I'm on the struggle bus. So, but I will leave this video here. You know, tell me what you think. Let's do a little vote. If anybody ever comments on these videos, should I go Viper Blue, which is the color of this truck, or should I go Plum Crazy Metallic? There are 3 video reviews of Plum Crazy Metallic. 2 from Rocky Mountain Peterbilt and 1 from SoCal Peterbilt, or SoCo Peterbilt, I think, Southern Colorado. They're all out of Colorado. And 1 and 2 have black frames. 1 has painted tanks, 1 has stainless tanks, and then the other one has a red frame. And I don't like the red frame, but I wanted to look at videos of the Plum Crazy, so, you know, captured under different lighting. So yeah, tell me what you think, and maybe I'll do more videos later. So try to do them more, because I have nobody to vent to. You guys are now stuck with me. Okay, love you, bye.